This is a review for proficiency check number 10, equations with exponents and roots. So if we have x squared plus 1 is equal to 37, following the rules of order of operations, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, the exponents would come first, and then the addition. When we are solving equations, we cancel these things out in reverse order. So the first thing we do is cancel out the plus 1. We do that by subtracting 1. Since we subtract 1 on the left, we also subtract 1 on the right, and we're left with x squared is equal to 36. The next step to cancel out is the x to the second power. One way we do this is we take the second root of x squared. And oftentimes that 2 is not even written, and it's just the square root of x. But they're the same thing. It ends up canceling out, so the only thing left is x. And on the right side, we have the square root of 36, which is plus or minus 6. For 5x squared, we divide out 5 from both sides, and we end up with x squared is equal to 9. Again, we're going to take the second root, which is the same thing as the square root, and we get x equals plus or minus 3. If you're wondering why plus or minus, that's because 3 times 3 is equal to 9, and also negative 3 times negative 3 is equal to 9. So there's two possible answers. On this side, we have the square roots, so we divide by negative 3, and we end up with the square root of x is equal to 1/3. When we square this to cancel that out, we get x is equal to 1/9. This one, we subtract 4 from both sides, so we have the square root of x is equal to negative 6. We square both sides. We end up with x is equal to 36. Be cautious, because if you enter into your calculator negative 6 squared, what your calculator does, it follows the order of operations. It tells you 6 squared is 36, and then it applies the negative, kind of like this. The way to fix that is to enter it in your calculator in parentheses, and then you get the correct answer, which should be a positive 36. This next section, things get a little more complicated. We subtract 2 from both sides, and we end up with 8x squared is equal to 8. We divide both sides by 8. X squared is equal to 1. When we take the square root of both sides, we get x is equal to plus or minus 1. Going down, first thing we do is add 10 to both sides, and this gives us negative 2x squared is equal to negative 2. Then we divide both sides by negative 2, and we get x squared is equal to a positive 1. When we take the square root of both sides, we get x is equal to plus or minus 1. Number 7, first thing we do is subtract 4 from both sides, so we get negative 64 is equal to negative 8, square root x. Then we divide both sides by a negative 8. We get a positive 8 on the left. To cancel out the square root, we square both sides, and we get 64 is equal to x. We could distribute for this problem, or we could divide by 2. It's less work that way. That's what I would do. Cancels out. So we have negative 2 root x minus 8 is equal to negative 14. We will add 6 to both sides, and we have negative 2 root x is equal to, we should be adding 8, not 6, negative 6. That's where the 6 came from. And we're going to divide by a negative 2, and we get that the square root of x is equal to 3. And when we square both sides, we get x equals 9. Number 9, the first thing we do is we multiply both sides by 4. So we get 5x squared minus 8 is equal to 12. Then we add 8 to both sides, so we get 5x squared is equal to 20. We divide both sides by 5. X squared is equal to 4. And when we take the square root of both sides, x is plus or minus 2. Again, we're going to multiply by 2 to cancel out and we have negative root x plus 8 is equal to 4. We will subtract 8 from both sides, so we get negative root x is equal to negative 4. We'll divide out a negative 1, so root x is equal to 4. We will square both sides, and x is equal to 16.